Hey, Grave here again. So, last weekend, Microsoft had their whole Xbox game showcase. We've got things like Clockwork Revolution, which I think is going to do real well. We've got the Invincible fighting game, which, if you're into that, cool. New stuff for Sea of Thieves, Persona 4 remaster, and other things as well. With like Final Fantasy coming to Xbox, took them long enough, but I'm not on Xbox anymore. Um, when it comes down to it, there's a couple things I do want to talk about. Outer Worlds 2, I think, kind of is hitting the market at the wrong time. Well, I don't know if there's a right time for this game. With Obsidian's latest track record with Avowed and previous game recently, it I don't think they're gonna do too well with this release. I think it'll only be saved by Game Pass, and that's partially taking into consideration the price tag as well as competition that it has within the single player RPG market. What it comes down to is there back in 2020 they kind of released the first Outer Worlds at a great time to make it a big hit, primarily because everyone was so hyper fixated on live service, trying to catch the lightning in the bottle, trying to be the next Destiny, etc. Grounded, I think, did pretty well because that was another one that was in a market that was not very saturated. But what it comes to now is that we have a bit more of a saturated single player RPG market, especially with things like Sandfall Interactive and Larian actually making new things. I don't expect we're going to see anything new from Larian for a while, but we've got big AA and even indie devs, and I say big loosely there, actually coming up with some really interesting games, really cool looking games, new looking games. We've got just a section of the industry that is booming and looking to innovate and try new things, all the while old dogs want to try and stifle that innovation by let's look at Nintendo, where they're going after Pal World. Like, yes, say what you will, Pal World. I'm not gonna defend the art. I'll defend the gameplay and the mechanics. Problem is, I don't think mechanics should ever be patented. A big showing of that is Warner Bros., where they patented the Nemesis system and no one could use it aside from them. So I don't like that. I don't like how Nintendo's trying to fight this. Uh, but that's beside the point in the moment. I don't think Obsidian has it in them to make a great game or even an above average game. Because Avowed, I would argue, I didn't play it. I looked at it. I could tell it's not. But by the art style and by the way they're trying to do it, I don't think it's going to be a. Well, I didn't think it was going to be something that would be interesting, either narratively or gameplay wise. Because in the original big cinematic trailer, we were sold this dark, gritty world. You can find my gameplay actually of the first Pillars of Eternity game on the channel. It is more of a dark, gritty. Things are always having a chance of getting worse or better depending on actions. A lot of it just comes down to that most devs today aren't given the freedom to do what they want. I say that because a lot of tends to be what will sell the best, what will accommodate to the least common denominator, what is the most quote unquote accessible game. A lot of games today are overly sanitized and made by committee. The way I like to put it is we got 30 people telling one guy how to dig a hole. I don't think that we're going to necessarily see from AAA a good game that come out in the next few years, or maybe in a very long time, with how they continue to operate. Meanwhile, the industry at the lower end of the spectrum in terms of uh, budget is more so looking for, hey, let's make a fun game like how it used to be at the start when there was not a lot of money in the industry. Uh, as it stands, we're going to see more interesting games and big budgets. Uh, we're going to see more interesting games and uh, projects come out of indie studios because they're more willing to experiment and innovate. We've got Ubisoft, who was lambasted with Shadows because of their uh, quite offensive attempt to try and make a Japanese game while also being sort of general Asian in the design, and also outright stealing artwork. That also has become a trend with AAA, where they're stealing artwork from people. Like Ubisoft stole, what was it? Some I forget the story, but Ubisoft stole a flag design, and then Bungie has been caught basically wholesale stealing Marathon's art on top of previous things, which are also a little interesting. It's definitely a case of there not being either enough oversight or there being too much oversight and too much focusing on things being over sanitized. I mean, that's part of it, but not the whole part of it. Well, the whole of the problem. What it comes down to mostly is we are not going to see something that is interesting come out of some big legacy studios because their whole focus is profitability. Their whole focus is how much can we make, how many can we sell, etc., etc. The big $80 price tag on things now. It make your argument for Nintendo. I got no idea what Nintendo's doing. They're always off on their own thing. But as for Microsoft specifically, they're bumping it up specifically so they can sell Game Pass better. Game Pass, they want to make it as a bargain deal, and the more that they can manage to get someone to play Game Pass, the more that they can make year over year, specifically because they expect you to forget about the subscription. That's how it is. Uh, how many subscriptions do you have that you forget about? I tend to make sure I don't have any subscriptions that I'm paying constantly, and I don't forget about them. But in the end, becomes a chore, and that is exactly what things like Microsoft are looking at and saying, "Hey, we want to be the Netflix of games, but we also want people to forget that they're subscribed to us." It's sort of an interesting little direction they're taking things. I don't like it. I'd much rather be able to own a game, but at the same time, we haven't been able to own games truly on PC in a while because everything is digital. Everything is a license. And you can argue on another thing that prices have always been quite high after you factor in DLC. Like most games, 5 years ago, they were $60 base, and then 80 to $100 depending on how much DLC was planned for the game. And then you've got things like BioWare crumbling down now. I'd say recently they're crumbling with having Anthem been destroyed, having Knights of the Old Republic. No, what was it? Star Wars: The Old Republic taken from them, given to Broadsword. They've got Mass Effect Andromeda that effectively killed the studio and was. I actually, to a degree, kind of enjoyed the game and wanted to see them expand the story, but it is what it is. It's just a lot of it is plagued by big studios rushing things at the last minute, relying on crunch time, but which has changed recently. I will say that from what it looks like outside looking in. I generally think that we're seeing a major shift in the gaming landscape, simply because previously publishers had brand recognition to rely on. If you saw Ubisoft, if you saw EA to a degree, if you saw Activision, if you saw BioWare, if you saw Obsidian 5, 7, 8 years ago, you would have leapt at buying the game because that brand was a mark of quality. Not so much anymore, and like how many times can you replace parts or even the whole of a ship and say it's the same ship? You can't. That ship is no longer the same. It might be the same in name, but it's not the same ship anymore. As it is, we're looking at brand new ships that are have none of the old crew, and they're trying to build things that they think you might want because they don't know the gaming industry. They don't know gamers. They hate the audience. They hate their audience. That's what's at these big AAA developers and publishers. They hate the audience and they want you to not buy it and they want to destroy everything. And then they want their mythical modern audience to come in and rescue them when their game is not profitable, a la Concord, and very likely a la Marathon soon enough. Depending, Marathon, because of Bungie's own ineptitude, has become a non-viable product in this current market. This current market, Marathon's non-viable. I don't know what they're gonna do. Uh, I think EA is kind of an interesting spot because they're trying to push their single player games while also really try to lean into their live services. I mean, EA's big thing has always been their sports and their year over year sales of sports. Uh, but I'm looking forward to seeing what we get out of Respawn. Yeah, Respawn from EA has had a really good track record with Titanfall and Jedi, well, in their Jedi series. I'm really hoping that they continue to make great things. I think EA is trying to set them up for failure, and EA is so surprised by it that they're trying to build them back up. But at the same time, it's just we're in a situation where everything is up in the air for various industries, well, for various publishers and developers. But those are just my thoughts. If you got something to throw down there in the comments to continue the conversation, please do. Let's continue this and see if we can move the conversation forward. Until next time, have a blessed day.